Hello, YouTube, people who are Cancerian. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back. Um, okay. So if you're new here, welcome back. Um, please click like, subscribe, share if you like things that you're hearing. Make positive comments. Um, we'll just leave that there. If you've been here before, as you know, like I'm not an astrologer. I know a little bit, know enough to be dangerous about things. Mostly I channel information. Um, get information from my guides, stuff like that. And I do use cards as well, but just to like open windows and stuff like that and kind of get a clearer image of what Spirit is trying to say. So let's jump into it. All right. So we are having Mercury retrograde. And towards the middle of the month, we are having um Jupiter Mars conjunction, which is also going to be playing off the planet of Pluto. So there's a lot of changes that are trying to happen in our lives these days, depending upon where that is happening. Um, People tend to be afraid of Mercury retrograde, or they're adverse to it, they want to complain about it. But Mercury retrograde has to do with like redoing things, right? Redoing negotiation, redoing contracts, redoing can be redoing relationships. It can be it do say like make sure you're taking time to travel, like be aware of like delays, stuff like that, whatever. So there are ways to work with Mercury retrograde. It doesn't have to be this big bad demon, you know. It's just depending upon where it is in your chart. If you know what your chart looks like, then you know um, you can see what's happening and how to be proactive about it. So let's see what's happening for the sign of Cancer at this time with all of this stuff going on. All right, Cancer. Wow. Spirit says that you're going through this very big kind of like rebellious time period right now. Um, and Spirit is saying that the universe is trying to have you basically renegotiate about who you are and what you're all about. There can be new things coming up from the surface that no longer serve you, right? Things that you learned before that um, that you don't necessarily believe, but you were taught. So there's evidence that is coming up here for you where it's like there can be this like battle with the self. And it's funny at the bottom of the deck is a strength card, which is like your internal strength, right? So finding out where your strengths and weaknesses are. Um, so you don't, there's a whole thing going on here about it's going to be really important for you to meditate. I am a big um, proponent for meditation. Um, but more meditating on the self and seeing what it is that comes up. What is it that is no longer useful? You, what kind of belief systems are no longer valid in your life? Um, because it's almost like it feels to me like you're going through some sort of a Saturn return. And Saturn return is really about um, changing your value systems in a lot of ways. Saturn comes up, Saturn return happens every 28 and a half years or so. And so a lot of you may be going through that. or watching this channel, but I think that Cancer in general is having this big thing. But because Saturn is probably going to be in like it's in Aquarius, and I don't know, I think it's like retrograde, so that may play out depending upon where it is in your chart, um, with all of that. So I don't know. It's just interesting the way that Spirit is like showing me these things. And it's like, certain things coming up, and it feels like there can be a lot of agitation, right? But I just want to say that sometimes things come up in order for you to look at and release. It doesn't necessarily mean that things are coming up just to like bother you, right? It doesn't mean that there are like some people can think of it as like trauma or something like that, whatever, and it doesn't have to be that. It can just be certain things coming up for you to look and say, well, do I really believe this anymore or don't I? And if it's something that you don't believe anymore, then it's like, okay, I don't believe that anymore because this is what I'm doing now, right? Because you're going through a lot of changes in who you are and what you're all about. Um, so who you are and what you're doing now, because Spirit is saying that you have gone through a lot of changes over the last couple of years, the last like 2, maybe 3 years. And so because you have gone through these changes in these past 3 years or so, things that were happening in your life before, they don't matter anymore, right? So it's like you don't have to fight for something that you used to believe in. You don't have to fight for that thing to be true because it's no longer we're rhyming, right? Because it's no longer true for you. So yeah. So let's see what's happening for you, Cancer. Let's see what cards like Spirit wants to like bring out for you. Cancer, Cancer, Cancer. What is that? This is your wish. And it's interesting because we are talking about Cancer, we're talking about your emotions, right? And the Nine of Cups is completion of a cycle on an emotional level, right? It is considered the wish card. So, but it's not really like, oh, I have this wish about this, that, the other thing, whatever. It's about whatever the energy is that you're putting out, that's what you're going to get. It is sort of a karma-based card, but so, it is a thing, be careful what you wish for, right? Like that kind of thing. Be careful of the energy that you're putting out because whatever you're putting energy toward, that has an ability to show up in your life, right? So let's see what's happening here. All right. So Nine of Cups, your wish card. This is like the Seven of Pentacles here. Seven of Pentacles is a card that talks about a fear of failure, right? It's not an actual failure, but um, it's fear of failure. This card has to do with a change in the structure of your life, right? So depending upon the kind of structure, right? This card is based in Saturn, right? So Saturn is all about the structure of your life, right? So this is a change in direction. It can be change in direction in terms of your like money finances because it is Pentacles, but it's like it can be anything to do with like physicality. It can be changes that have to do with it can have to do with like changes that have to do with your body, right? Whether you're like dieting or things like that, whatever. Um, especially if there's like some sort of like an emotional component to your physicality, right? Like emotional eating, things like that, whatever, right? Or because it's talking about like whatever kind of emotions you're putting into your structure, right? Which is really just what like Spirit was talking about. So this is the moon card, talks about trusting your instincts. We're talking about the subconscious. This is really just like what Spirit was just talking about. Because the moon is about your subconscious. It is about the things that are coming up, right? Fear of failure about your subconscious, right? But this is a card that also talks about trusting your instincts. It's your dream time, right? It's like trusting your path forward, right? Starting a new cycle around your life. Talks about being open to all possibilities. This is a card that has to do with like daydreams, things like that. It's about like your fantasies. It's about like, you know, kind of, what do you want to call it? Um, it's interesting because both of these cards here have to do with like Pisces. Um, because this is a lot about like fantasies and stuff like that, right? And you're starting a new cycle about what your fantasies are about, right? So and also whatever your fantasies are about, right? Because the Seven of Cups is a card that has to do with choices, right? And what is it that you're trying to manifest around here? So it's like looking at your emotional choices, right? And then making decisions based on those things. What is it that you're trying to manifest here? So again, we have another nine, right? Nines of completion, right? This is what I call like the wounded warrior, right? This is like, again, it's interesting that you have nines over here, right? Because the cards that are here are related to the past. The cards that are here are the present. The cards that are here are the future. So this is all about the past, right? So, and where you're coming from, stuff like that. This is what you're doing with it and how things are going to play out. So, so now we have the wands, right? We have cups up here. We have emotions, which is also cups. Um, and we have the Seven of Cups up here. Right now we're dealing with wands. So this is in a lot of ways I use a Nine of Wands for, like, it is a wounded warrior. It's like you've been beaten up over a lot of stuff, and it's like, but this guy is standing in front of the wands, right? So it's like he's saying, like, I'm not going back. He's holding on to one wand. So it's like, um, so it's like I'm holding on to this one thing, and this is what I'm going to be doing now. Right? We have the Seven of Wands here, which is about standing up for your convictions. It's kind of about perseverance, right? But it's a card that can bring up conflict, right? Or a card that can talk about conflict, right? Especially because you have the Seven of Pentacles here, which is what we were talking about earlier, right? Fear of defeat, change in terms of the structure of things, right? And people can be arguing with you because you're making a lot of changes around your life, right? Because this is why it's talking about conflict, right? The six wands there about other people coming at you, and then you're standing there trying to defend yourself, right? But this is something that can be happening on the inside too. It doesn't necessarily have to be, people outside, right? It can start on the inside first about like, oh, these people are going to be really disappointed in me if I start doing this thing and I'm no longer doing that, right? Um, because there's a lot of things that are trying to come in at you right now. So the Knight of Swords is about, like, it can be a lot about like rushing into things, right? But um, all right, like we said, things coming up for your from your subconscious, and it's like there's this battle here, right, between your subconscious and your mind, right? And your mind is really in this like battle here. Um, your mind is kind of coming at you, being like, "Hey, what are you doing?" Right? Three of Swords is the Mercury retrograde, right? Um, it's kind of about like, an imbalance between your head and your heart, right? Not get, and then you have the Four of Cups here, which is not getting needs met emotionally, right? New new emotions coming in at you, right? And you're like, I don't really want this, right? But it's almost like there's new kinds of choices coming in around here. And Three of Swords will be like, you know, not really happy about all of this. Right? But the Fool card says to be open to the process about all of this stuff, right? Things are coming up so that your head and your heart can be balanced, right? Because there's like new opportunities being presented here. Four of Cups is really fours are really meant to be about stability, right? But when I see the Four of Cups, it's this guy sitting here being very apathetic, right? Like I don't really want to be dealing with this. I'm not really happy with my life and blah blah blah, right? But it's like the universe is offering you something new on an emotional level, right? So so it's interesting because you're looking for stability. Four of Pentacles, Four of Wands here can also indicate some sort of change around your home as well, right? Um, it's it's interesting because you have the Lovers card here, and the Lovers card is ruled by the sign of Gemini. Gemini is a quandary. It's kind of like it's an inside outside battle. It's like what's going on outside, what's going on inside, right? And having to make choices connected to these things, right? And you're sitting here with the Page of Swords in the middle, which is a lot about like having an attitude about all of the stuff that's going on, right? And so like, oh, like things were stable, I had my wish going on, right? And then things from the past coming up in order to have to make changes around things. And what are you doing about all that? I use the Four of Wands, my wand. I use the Four of Wands for a change in the home, right? Spirit is telling me that this change in home is also about how your body is the home of your spirit, right? So changes in your home, changes in your physicality, right? And like we said, there can very well be changes that are taking place here in your physical structure, right? Um, it can be change in your home, like literal kinds of change in your home, right? But this can also mean a lot about having to um, alter things in your home, right? So normally I would use the Four of Pentacles as making changes in the home, right? Like changing curtains, furniture, that kind of a thing, right? But the way that this is sitting here is that you may have to change things in the home because of other people in the home, right? Or maybe other people's stuff in your home if you have other people's things in your house. Because the Seven of Wands is a card that will talk about like kind of like conflict, things coming at you, right? That you're trying to maintain a sense of stability about based on like what other people's influence, right? But like I said, you have the nine, so there's a big like kind of like completion going on around here. Um, all right. So we have what's happening here. So Hierophant is a card that can be connected to relationships and stuff in terms of like marriage, things like that. However, I use the Hierophant card also for like education. There can be a lot of, it can be these things here that have to do with making some sort of decisions about your resources. The Queen of Pentacles brings up things connected to resources. But the Hierophant card is, it's a card about the teacher, right? It's more like a spiritual teacher. So whoever your guides are can be coming in and trying to help you to be making changes. This is kind of, it can bring up blessings for you as well, right? But it's kind of interesting because you have these two queens here and their backs are towards each other, right? So it's like trying to deal with like physical things and trying to deal with like mental things, right? This is a card, the Queen of the Swords is connected to Athena. So again, she is connected to strategy, right? Queen of Pentacles is about your resources, your money, your finances, things like that. This card is usually connected to the sign of Capricorn. So it's about your standing in the community, things like that, right? But your guides are sitting here trying to help you to bring these two things that are they can really be in opposition to each other, right? And try to bring them into balance. Right, because there's new beginnings here that are happening connected to your creative energy. And again, right, we're talking about creativity, things trying to manifest, right? Difficulties connected to that, right? This guy's connected to Venus, right? So Venus can be connected to like money, finances, things like that, but also anything that you're doing like on a creative level. This is kind of about like money, finances, things like that. It can be difficulties here that are connected to the mother, whatever the mother energy is, whether you are mother, whether it's your mother, right? Difficulties around these things, right? And it's like being difficult here. This would suggest having difficulty nurturing yourself, right? As you are being like reborn, basically. Right? Um, the King of Swords over here can bring up legal things as well. But this is about, it's interesting. You have the King of Swords and you have the Queen of Swords. So it's like Queen of Swords says to be clear about where you want to go, what it is you want to do, what kind of strategies you're doing in order to get that, right? King of Swords is clarity of mind. Also, he feels like he's more about clarity of purpose in this particular thing, right? And he's the only king that faces forward as well, right? So there's definitely some sort of um this feels to me like there can definitely be some sort of legal things coming in around you to help you to become like more in control, help you to be moving forward here as far as like your money, finances, things like that are concerned. There's a lot of conversation here with what I want to call like important people, right? In order for you to become more in charge, because the Emperor is about control. Um, you can bring up father energy, but it's a lot about like control and how you're trying to be in control, things like that, right? It can bring up things connected to government, stuff like that, difficulties around government, right? And having to make decisions that don't necessarily go together. Um, and that can make like difficulty around things, right? But it's like you're sitting here and you're trying to be in control, right? But the communication looks like it's going to be the thing that kind of sets you free, right? And this is something with the eight, it's telling me over the course of the next like 8 days, 8 weeks, something like that. This is kind of the swiftness. So things are happening like sooner rather than later about whatever government things that you're talking about here, right? If you require some sort of legal action, right, it is something that can bring about money and finances being in your favor. But with the Knight of Pentacles, um, the communication is something that can happen swiftly, but the outcome is something that can maybe like take a little bit of time, right? And the outcome can put us probably more into September time period because this is an earth sign. Technically, it's related to the sign of Taurus. But things things do feel like they are trying to wrap up like sooner rather than later. So if you're looking for some sort of a financial outcome around here, then it's showing here as being a positive. Um, what else do we see happening here? Right. What's on the bottom here? So this is being tied to your thoughts, right? So making decisions that overwhelm you. And if we have my sort of like clarification happening for this Cancer. With the Ace of Wands here and the Empress card, right? Definitely feels like there's some aces have to do with the self, right? So this is like entrepreneurial based things, right? Especially if you went to school to start something new, right? It would definitely be in resources that you had before, right? It's like reimagining things, right? But there's a lot of stuff that happens here about like you nurturing yourself, you growing into the person that you really want to be, right? And Spirit says that you've had a difficult time around all of this, but because you do have the wands here, right? So it's like almost like subconsciously, there's been a lot of like difficulty in you being able to be beautiful, see yourself as being beautiful, right? Because it's Empress, so it's Venus, it's about love, beauty, all this kind of thing, right? But the Empress sitting in this position says that she, right, and the moon card, right? So subconscious things coming up to kind of like beautify yourself, right? So um you don't have the ten of swords here. Um, but there can be some sort of like a detox thing going on, things coming up, right? Subconsciously, right? Like the difficulties, like stuff like that, right? And so it could literally be things coming up out of your like systemically, right? In order to be released, in order for like, perhaps it's like better skin, perhaps it's like better hair, right? Whatever it is, right? Because we're talking about things happening here on a physical level. And so it's just the universe's way of showing you that you have, first of all, they're telling me that it's a way that Spirit is showing you how much they love you, right? To be able to release all of the drama, the trauma, all of this kind of like stuff, the difficulties that have been in the past. So all this stuff trying to be like let go of, so then you can be more in control, right? And whatever kind of like legal things are happening over here coming up in order to be able to help you, right? Hierophant card like twice, right? Devil card limitations and restrictions, trying to be in a place of power. This is a card that I use for like changing things in and around the home, curtains, furniture, stuff like that. And then you do have the Four of Wands, which is the card that I use about the change in home. But it's also can also be that if you're making changes in your house to beautify it, it can make it feel new. So there is that, right? Um, there's definitely some sort of like money, finances, right? Um, the double card is about limitations and restrictions around here, right? It is ruled by a sign of Capricorn, which is Saturn. Saturn is about structure, right? There's a power struggle that's happening around here. Um, this feels to me, but I'm looking at this, Spirit is telling me that there are things that are going on here that are connected to like self-esteem issues. Who you were before, right? And then learning something new and the power struggle to become more in charge. Because I'm really just reading the energy of these things, not necessarily what each card means, like textbook wise, because that doesn't necessarily matter to me. It's more about the energies that are showing up around here. So they're telling me that there has been like a lot of like difficulties connected to the past, right? Like everybody has had that, but we're talking about like you specifically in this particular instance, whoever it is that's listening to this and whatever, right? So the difficulties that have happened connected to the past and the things that you've had to learn, um, more so on a spiritual level, right, through the whole like power struggle around things, but having to put out more what we would call putting out like more like male energy, right? um, owning your own power, right? Because you do have the devil card here, you have the king of wands, so like male energy, aggressive energy, right? Doesn't matter whether you're male or female, right? It's about having to like own your own power, masculine energy, kind of in a lot of ways like demanding, um, that this is what it is I want, right? Nine of Swords is going to be getting out of your comfort zone, right? And looking at what it is that you're holding on to and what it is that you're letting go, right? You have the Magician card here, so this is going to be connected to communication, right? It says you have all the tools that you require to get things done. This is just going to be juggling about like there's juggling here about money and finances, right? But also about like resources, right? Holding on to things, letting things go, trying to balance things. Um, but you do have all the resources, right? And your wish card is here about becoming more in control, more in charge, stuff like that. Um, and so stability is trying to present itself to you, which is interesting. Um, September 2nd to September 12th is going to be a really important time period. Um, by the time we get to the end of September 12th, or after September 12th, it feels like things going to be like more settled, more balanced. But as we're approaching September 12th, you can feel like another shoe is getting ready to drop. Doesn't necessarily mean that it is, but it could be a little bit on edge at that time period, right? Because all of this drama is really trying to be done, trying to be finished and stuff like that. So um, I don't know what's happening in the stars around that time period, but that's what Spirit is telling me. So that's what I'm telling you. Um, so we'll see what's going to go on with all of that. Um, this is really trying to be about letting go of like the stress factor, right? Choices, separation. Two of Swords is a card that I use for separation. So like, yeah, like letting things go, letting people go, stuff like that. Spirit showed me this thing about, the world is going to do what the world is going to do, right? You can only control the Emperor card, right? You can only control what's happening with you, right? So yeah, you have to go through your day-to-day life, stuff like that, right? They're saying don't be winging things, right? Stop winging it. They want you to have a plan of action, right? And that's what the King of Swords is about, and the Queen of Swords. I think you're showing up as the Queen of Swords, which says to be clear about who you are, what it is that you want. King of Swords would be the resources that you have as far as people are concerned. And the resource is bringing in clear information to you. So they refer to, King of Swords, Queen of Swords as like divine pairing, right? Queen of Pentacles, King of Pentacles, divine pairing, like that kind of a thing, right? So you have both of those people sitting here. So there is a kind of alignment that is trying to happen here, connected to you and the people that are representing the resources. So the people have the resources, right? So it's not like you're being handed over money, but there are people who are around you. You may have to pay these people, right? Because they have resources to be able to help you. So that's interesting. Because that would fall under the heading of the eighth house, which is other people's money, right? Other people's resources, stuff like that. So I don't know what that means for you, but that's what we're talking about, how other people's resources working in conjunction with other people. And you are being directed. So it's like, what it's telling me is that you're sitting here talking to this person, and this person is telling you, go over here, talk to this one, right? So that's connected to the Three of Swords, is what I'm being told. So Three of Swords is about, it's a card that talks about like sorrow due to lack of communication, right? Miscommunication, stuff like that, right? So what they're telling me that it means is that if you're talking to somebody and they're suggesting that you go talk to whoever this person is, just go talk to that person, right? Don't be second guessing it. Don't be trying to argue with yourself in your head and your heart, right? Just go talk to them and at least see what's going to happen with that, right? It may work out, it may not work out, but if you don't go check, you're never going to know, and you may regret it, right? So, because some of these things are going to work out, so that's good, right? Because you do have your wish around here, and your wish to be in charge of the Emperor card and the Magician, right? The Magician and the Empress, right? So you are in the process here of manifesting something good for yourself, something that's helping you to be in control, and it's helping you with your resources, with your money, with your finances, stuff like that, right? Like negotiating terms in terms of your finances, right? So I don't know if that means renegotiating loans. I don't know if that means working with a wealth management person, but somehow or another, your resources are balancing out somehow or another. And that could just mean that, the devil card here, you're sitting with like limitations and restrictions in the past, right? So that could just mean that you were putting out a lot of money, bleeding money, and now you're not, right? So, things changing, so you're no longer bleeding money. So now you have resources. And so now, like, what are you going to do with those resources? Right. So I think that people are going to be helping you to determine what it is that you require in your life, what it is that you don't require in your life, things like that. So, because it does feel like there's people coming in around you that are going to be able to help you with these things, right? So that's what I have to tell you for today, Cancer people. Um, Again, if you like what you hear, click like, subscribe, share with other people, leave positive comments. It helps the algorithm, whatever, right? Um, so yeah, and I do readings for other people, private readings, one-on-one. That information is in the description. So we'll see what's going to happen with all of this. All right. Good luck.